and start my own thing, which was basically, it was pretty ideal because now I knew what I wanted to do, what I wanted to say, and it was more under my control and my partner's control to kind of reach the goal that we had in mind for ourselves and also for Youngstown.
Cool. So was it you or Sarah that kind of prompted the creation of Jet Creative?
It was
was it serendipity? How did it work out?
It was sort of a long time coming. So we actually worked together.
Okay.
And we found how well we work together. So she does the strategic planning of stuff and the more of the business side, like the sales and the consulting and like that kind of stuff. While I'm the artistic side, kind of getting like the production side of it down. So when we found out how well we work together, we kind of got a group of us together. So it was a lot of she knew she wanted to start her own business. I knew that it was something that I wanted to do, and then also my husband had like a dream to do it, and then her husband also had like a great influence. So we kind of all came together and all encouraged each other to get it kind of started and up and going. And from then it just kind of been running pretty strong with a strong support system too.
Cool. So who's the first client?
So I would say our biggest first client is actually a nonprofit that we all kind of had a heart for. So we did full branding, full website design, everything for Potential Development School for Autism. And we took that on more as a pro bono account to help them, but also kind of get our feet in the door. And Sarah was on the board, and now I'm on the committee for a few of their events.
Build out the portfolio.
Right, exactly. And they're still one of our top clients, and we still love what they do so much that they're still one of our pro bono nonprofit clients. And so they were probably our first, and through that we met a lot of people, and it kind of helped get the ball rolling.
That's a place on Market, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah, they just got the 2 buildings.
Yeah, and they just had exterior signage put up too. Did you guys do that?
So basically, like we put all the branding together, and then they just gave it to the sign company.
Yeah.
But I didn't know they were gonna do it, so we drove past, and I was like, it looks so good.
Yeah, when that happens to me, it's like, oh, that's really cool. I wish I would have been consulted on it as I'm driving.
Right, yeah. But it's simple, so it's not like absolutely like crazy out of
right.
the branding guidelines.
So from that client, you were able to build out and build your base from there. So are all of your clients local, regional, or do you have some that are a few states away? Or
they're pretty much all in this area.
Okay.
The furthest ones we have are in the Cleveland area, and they're located around Cleveland, but then they have a bunch of facilities kind of all over Ohio. That's probably our biggest widespread clients.
How does it feel to take clients from those big Cleveland agencies?
I mean, it's pretty good. It's kind of fun to not that I want to I'm not going to bash anyone because I don't even know exactly who they are, but when people kind of say like, oh, we worked with these people and we didn't really like what they did and they kind of did stuff this, and it's kind of like a weird like jerry-rigged system that they went through, and they like charged them weird and they like treated them badly, and it just sort of opens your eyes too to be like, I mean, we're doing things right. Not only are we producing a good quality, but we like genuinely like working with our clients, and we pick clients that we click with, and like we become friends with them afterwards. So it's kind of nice to, when you do take ones from bigger places, it's more like because we can build a relationship with people. Right. That makes the biggest difference.
So there are 2 main elements of that I think should resonate with you guys. Is one, this is without a doubt a competitive industry. And then number 2, people or clients rather that aren't from this area are beginning to understand or already understand or have understood, thanks to folks like Emily, that quality creative work comes out of our community and the Valley.
Yeah.
And that I would hope in some cases, based on your reputation, some of the bigger metro areas, they seek you out. Right. Yeah.
And a lot of it, we're basically all like referral based, word of mouth. We don't do cold calls or anything like that. It's pretty much, it starts with that one like potential, and then they all know people, and then they recommend us, and from there it's relationship building and proving ourselves that makes the word spread.
And to be a business in operation for 5 years plus, and to work off of referrals only is ridiculous. understand how difficult that is. Because you have to deliver every single time. It's like the stars have to align for all of your clients.
Right.
And, in the grand scheme of things, if you've had 150 clients, it's like not all of them are going to be amazing out of the park successes.
Right.
But you guys are making it work, so that is the case. So, so you're pulling a lot of late hours, weekend hours to make projects happen for your clients.
And something that we do that by kind of staying small. So we started small and had a slow growth. So I was lucky enough to find my business partner who was the one who was able to make the sales for us and is really good at it. And we kind of built up our process to grow without getting completely overwhelmed. And now we just hired, we hired a copywriter who's amazing and great at everything, and now we just hired a second graphic designer, and so now we have like our core team that we're sticking with, and we're reeling in those processes so well that those late nights and weekend hours are getting cut short more and more.
Yeah, you're becoming more efficient as you expand your team.
And we also are kind of selective with our client base too. Like if anyone comes to us, we're not going to take anyone if they're not a good match, because you don't necessarily want to work with someone who has a vision in mind that we know we can't achieve. So we like to be transparent in that way.
Yeah, that's great that you are selective, because you could very easily be forced to not be selective here.
Right.
It's like, hey, any client that walks in through the door, you got to take them, because I'm a small creative agency in the Valley, and I'm competing against the McConnells and the Palos and the Minios, etc.
Which we had to do the first couple of years, but now it's nice where it's like we could be a little selective, and we have to be. We don't time time to take everyone, unfortunately.
Well, we've been competitive with each other. I don't know if you knew that.
A little bit, but
just the other day, a fellow from Liberty Township asked me to design a flyer.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, no problem, happy to help, but I've got other clients. It's like I would have said, yeah, I'd do it for free if I had the time, but I need to build that time accordingly. And Sarah swooped in and said, I'm going to do it, and I'll do it for free because I'm on the board or whatever. And it's
okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So that's okay. I said to the guy, I'm like, you know what? It's in good hands.
Yeah.
You guys are great. No big deal.
I mean, we have the same goal of we want to help businesses in Youngstown grow. And we don't like to believe in competition too much. We'd rather collaborate with people. And if there's something that we don't have time to handle or we don't think it's a good fit, we'll absolutely give them a recommendation to someone else or something else to get it done. Because that's kind of we want to help the people of Youngstown who deserve it.
Yeah, and not only that, but by having that relationship, you're helping support the business community.
Right.
And that will return. You'll see the returns on it if you haven't already. So that first job, let's switch gears a little bit. So by the way, woman-owned business. That makes you much more competitive in some respects. And for the ladies out there, if you ever think about, and maybe you can expand on this, if you ever think about starting your own business, understand that you actually have an advantage because you would be a woman-owned business.
Yeah, we're technically minority-owned.
Yeah, you're technically minority-owned, so if you were to go up for a federal, state, local government contract, they would take a harder look at you because of your status as a woman-owned business. But just in general, women-owned businesses kick ass anyway. So, you don't necessarily need the advantage. But nevertheless, understand that is there should you decide you want to not even start your own company, but just formalize your freelance practice.
Right.
Yeah. So switching gears, your first job. What year did you graduate?
I think it was December 2011. I don't know why. I can never remember the year, but I think it was 2011.
Okay, so 2011. And did you get a BFA from us, or what's your degree in?
My major was telecommunications.
TCOM.
Yeah, and then my minor was graphic design.
Okay,
so it's all in the bliss.
Yeah, so you lived in bliss.
Yeah.
Completely. What was your first portfolio like? What did that look like?
I mean, at the time, it's like, this was not bad, and now I look back and I'm like, it's not that good though. it's one of those
How
things.
How did I get a job with this thing? Yeah, we've all been there.
Right, yeah. But I always think of like, well, that's probably a good thing. If I'd never improved since I graduated, then that would be worse than not looking back and seeing it. I mean, it's totally different designing a project for school than it is for a client too. Just because you kind of have the direction of your professor, but then when you have the direction of a client, it's like all bets are off of. You have a goal and a dream, but like a vision for it, but it's not necessarily like
it's a client.
Probably. That like you might have something in mind, but then the client might end up changing it and stuff like that. But it is cool to kind of see how your style develops over time too.
Yeah. I just had a project where I went through I led all the focus groups for this new restaurant. We built this amazing logo, just steeped in metaphor. It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And then the owners hired a manager and a cook and a chef for the restaurant, and they hated it.
Oh gosh.
So it ended up so we ended up starting with this really great solution that I was actually really proud of and confident in. And then it just got whittled down into this homogenized, generic thing.
Right.
And what the thing is, like, it's still going to work for them, right? And my lesson there was I put all this passion into this project because it's in my community. It's going to stimulate the local economy and everything. But it was what was best for the client, what was best for the business. And you got to be able to take yourself out of that.
Right.
So,
and they know their industry.
Right. They're going to know it a million times more than we ever would.
Right.
So has there ever been a project where you've had a really hard time separating yourself from it and maintaining objectivity?
The longer I do it, the easier it gets because I kind of expect it now too. And what we kind of really try is to do a lot of like pre-production and research before we do anything. So we'll go and we'll research the industry before we get started as much as we can. Like we're not gonna go work there for a week or anything, but like we'll kind of look and we'll see what are the modern national brands doing like for this industry. And then if we design something and they don't necessarily like it, we could follow up with at least research and be like, look, this is what these ones are doing, this will work for this reason. And usually if it's backed up by all these facts, they'll kind of budge and be like, okay, yeah, I can see that. But of course not everyone will. They like kind of have their vision and what they want their company to be, which that makes sense, that's fine. And then we'll have to kind of tweak it a little bit, like more towards what they want.
Right.
But then it's kind of more of a happy medium that we've never really given anything away that we hated.
Yeah, and on that note, you're talking about your process, and one thing I think that if you guys haven't experienced this yet is you kind of build in and anticipate failure and revisions.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, it's not a complete process unless we're failing forward, ideally. So we're coming up with good ideas, they get rejected or they get revised, and we keep iterating for however long that takes.
Right.
So let's talk about like a logo project or something. You don't have to name names, but like how many versions of a logo did you have to do for a client before they accepted it? I have a record of 125 different logo solutions.
Oh my goodness.
For one client.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
there was a lot of crying.
I get it. I mean, I haven't had that many, luckily. We kind of put a limit on it too. Like you get like, at the most you have like 5 revisions. And then if you reach that limit, then you kind of like we might not just be the right match because our styles don't match up.
Right.
But of course, like we had to work to get to that, to be like, okay, we know we need to put a limit on things. But I mean, like it can get pretty high. I don't know an exact number, but it's like this little things. Like, can you just make the font a little different, or make that leaf a little different size, or something? And it's like, no one's gonna notice that, but okay.
So that actually brings up a great point: attrition. So what happens when you just like, hey, you know what? This isn't working out, and all that time you spend in getting that client just to say like we're not compatible. have you had that experience, and what's that been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, with a few people, it's just like your style of running a business doesn't match up with ours, and it's not necessarily that theirs is wrong and ours is right or anything like that. It's just sometimes people have different kind of styles about going about things. I can't think of really anyone where that ended up being like a terrible situation. Sure. Usually it just kind of we'll get them what they need and what they ask for, and then they're happy with it. And then we kind of just say like, okay, well this was good. I'm glad you got what you initially needed, but going forward, we'll just kind of refer you to someone else. Sure. Or like we like to be upfront and honest and transparent, and most people respect that. And then it's like, hey, I don't think we can necessarily do this for you, but right. Do you want to just go get a beer and we'll just hang out? And right. Usually it works out. And then you still keep that relationship without burning any bridges.
Yeah, beer is a great equalizer.
Right.
It helps find common ground. Mm-hmm. And, you can sort of utilize those as teaching moments, because it's like, hey, we went through this process, here's how we did it.
Right.
Drink.
Right.
And,
it's casual, yeah.
Yeah, and what it does is it drops the pretense, drops the guard.
Right.
And ultimately, they realize, like, hey, you know what, Emily's keeping my best interests, aka my bottom line, my money in mind.
Right. Yeah, because we don't want to waste anyone's money and then they're unhappy with what we give them. So we'll kind of just be honest with them, and then if we know someone who works more with their style, then we would refer them. So
switching gears, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about like sites like Fiverr and the other one? It's the Voldemort of
don't say its name.
Yeah, I can't say its name. Where you basically say, hey, I'm a client, and here's the creative brief, and then a million people design logos for it, and then you just choose one. How do you feel about those websites?
So I know that there's businesses out there who are starting up and truly don't have the money, but they need something. I think websites like that could actually work all right for them if they're really just getting started. But obviously once you become more of like an established business, you need a solid brand, a solid logo, things like that. It's kind of that barrier where you don't want to make someone kind of go bankrupt. Not that logos are too expensive, but you don't want to like knock them down before they even get started. So we don't like to necessarily like, hey, don't use us, go use them or anything like that. But like I kind of understand if someone needs to use them when they're very new, just starting out, if they have no idea. Like I'd rather see that than like a Microsoft Paint word art logo. But then at the same time, there's so many other resources that they could tap into. Like they could come to YSU and they could get the student to do it for maybe in their price range and things like that. And that's something I would much rather see than having them pick a random artist that lives, miles away across the country or across the world. Or
they could choose to be resourceful and tap into like Small Business Development Center, DesignWorks, whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we do a lot too. If anyone ever asks for any help like that, it's usually like my first answer is go to YSU and see if you can get some students to get involved, and like it's kind of a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, folks that use those websites, I take a hard line on them and basically say like you shouldn't be in business. Period. Like if you can't afford even like the most basic thing, because
logos aren't usually like they're not like a thousands of dollar expense. Yeah.
And that's a stigma I think that we deal with. Like, oh, well, I'm gonna have to go to Pittsburgh and get this $1,500, $5,000 logo, and those big agencies can get away with it. Yeah. So. I'm glad you don't use them or recommend them, those types of websites, but I want you guys to be aware of them because they're predatory. Essentially what happens, and you can supplement this, so spec work, speculative work, it's when you do work with the hope that you get paid for it. So I could say to Emily, hey, could you make me a logo and just put some idea together, and if I like one, I'll buy it. Meanwhile, I've got Dragana working on the same thing, and then I end up paying her for it and not you. Despite the fact that I've
and we've had situations like that where we like expected, we didn't expect that to happen. They're like, oh, we were just gonna buy the one that we liked better, and it's like that's not how this works.
Right.
But it's kind of like putting those guidelines in place ahead of time.
Yeah, and with every client, it's different. I mean, every client is its own personality,
right.
And you have to acclimate and conform to their quirks, really.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So what's the future of Jet look like from now till, I don't know, 5 years from now? What do you guys want to do? How do you want to grow or expand?
So we don't necessarily want to grow too much, which is usually not what you want to hear. We're not like, oh, we want to get like hundreds of employees and get like this big, space and move to big cities. And but we want to kind of keep our core group of 4, and we want to be able to have a good work-life balance. We don't want to be working all the time, even if that makes us like a super successful marketing firm. Right. We kind of want to stay a little smaller, but being more selective with our clients, so we don't kind of out of control.
It lets you be flexible and agile.
Right. Right.
So if you want to go to Paris and London for a week, you could probably get away with that.
Right.
With those bigger clients that have those hard deadlines, it can be brutal.
And kind of stressful.
And speaking as someone that's hired people and had employees that I was financially responsible for, your work-life that ratio, it just doesn't exist.
Right.
At that point.
Yeah.
Like, you will live, eat, breathe, sleep. In fact, hopefully this hasn't happened to you, but if you haven't woke up in like cold sweat from a nightmare because you're behind on a deadline or you were concerned about making payroll or something like that, then good on you guys, you're doing it right.
There's always the stressful moments.
Oh my God,
But there's the good usually to balance them out.
Well, the trade-off there is you're in control of your own destiny, right?
Right.
You're not reliant on anyone else.
It's nice, yeah.
So it's kind of like this ideal, and you guys are making it work, and especially in the Valley, which most people consider to be a depressed economy.
Right.
So it's good that you're allowing for that flexibility. So, with that being said, do you have any advice that you would give these intrepid young soon-to-be graduates entering the creative industries?
Basically, whenever anyone likes to ask that question, I always like to say just get involved in as much stuff as you can and meet as many people as you can. Because you never know who that one person is that's going to help you or to sort of just like help you move forward, even if it's introducing you to someone else who's going to introduce you to someone else. There's so many people out here just in the Mahoning Valley that need help and are very helpful, and there's so many networking groups out there that I would encourage everyone to get a part of. There's always going to be one out there that will fit you, and then you have not only like people who can help you advance you in your career, but even just a support system of people who have the same interests as you and the same, whether you want to be a business owner, the entrepreneurial spirit as you, or just kind of like the same mindset. I think that's one of the most important things, and they even encourage you to not give up and
they become your cheerleaders.
Right, yeah. And then once you meet the right people.
They may not be able to push work your way, but they support you and,
But then there's that one person that might be able to actually get you hired somewhere or get you a referral or something like that.
Cool. Well, do you guys have any questions? I have 5 of you for senior projects, so I'm obligating you to ask a question. Here's one. Casey asked, how do you price your work?
Yeah. So that's something that we kind of developed over the years, obviously. And a lot of it is based on what people want to do. So if it's, for example, like a website, we'll just say something like that, because that's one of the more flexible ones. We usually have a baseline kind of price, and then from there, if there's anything extra like a shopping cart, we'll add it on. If it's something like a brochure, we kind of just have like a baseline that kind of makes sense, because after you do it for so long, you realize how long something will take you and how many hours it'll take and how many like resources and things like that. So once we kind of set like that hourly rate and then knowing how many hours it takes, usually like a brochure is usually around the same time each time you do it, then that's usually how we price it out.
Okay. And Kayla was wondering about resumes, and like when you review a resume, what do they look like? So I tell the designers, design your resume. Can you talk a little bit about what you find attractive about graphic designers' resumes, what resonates with you, language, color, typesetting, etc.? Okay.
So we get a lot of resumes that just come in, and since I'm a designer myself, I obviously like the pretty resumes, and it's like this person's really tried, it's organized, which is one of my favorite parts. Is like, it's not only is it pretty, but it makes sense. I know what my Emmys to go to. I know what they actually want me to see. Just like all the obvious stuff with the resume, but it'll kind of like highlight the most important stuff, like the best experience and that kind of thing. And then obviously what I want to see the most is a portfolio of what the actual work is. Whether it's like if you do just design or just websites or whatever you send in, but like an honest portfolio of the work you've done, even if it's school projects, that still is a good indication of what you can do, along with the software that you know and things like that.
I have to go, unfortunately, but Kayla is going to record your responses to the questions that my students have. Okay? And I'll get that back from you tomorrow. Okay? Okay. Thanks, Dragon. Thank you. I owe you one. I will see you all later.
It's about time.
Drive safely.
Thank you. I will record all of it.
Oh boy. Bye.
So, about portfolio projects, what would you recommend as an average number of pieces to include, size, layout, etc.?
I noticed you're reading something. So I wouldn't necessarily want to go through a lot of projects. So basically something that shows off all kind of different styles and then all kind of different pieces. So like logo work and brochure work and business cards, and then if you do websites and stuff like that. Just like a little bit of everything of your best. Because you don't want to necessarily like, oh, I'm just going to throw it in there because like the more the better, and then it's not your best work. You don't want to show that off. And then I've never gotten any physical portfolios actually. It's all been digital. So when it comes to like size and stuff, I guess as long as it's not overwhelming.
Is digitally the most convenient or preferred way to receive a portfolio, or would you like to see some physical ones?
For me, I like digital just because it's easy for me to go back to it.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to necessarily like have a physical copy and then like ruin it or lose it or something. I like to do everything digitally. Even like when I get emails from people, like I'd rather get an email with a resume attached than a phone call asking to come in to get my resume, just because it's hard to make time for that. So it's kind of nice to just get everything digitally, but that's just me.
How is fine art incorporated in your designs?
So when it comes to me personally with fine art, I've always been more of the digital designer. But there's definitely times where fine art, it makes it interesting. Like I would go and do like some sort of watercolor painting, scan it in, and then use it for a digital piece. And I think that's kind of a unique thing that can make it, because it's really easy to go online and just find like, oh, I kind of like this design that I can make with my pen brush, and you know, and it's just like not as unique as something that you could put on paper and like scan it in and things like that. I think, and that's something that's really unique to the individual designer and the artist, and that's the stuff that I really like. So for me personally, I'm not the best like fine arts artist, but the graphic designer we just hired she's a really good illustrator, and she's really like artistic naturally. So it's cool that we have that whole different style that she could bring, that she could put into her pieces that I necessarily can't bring into it. Because if you have that creative, like fine art artistic brain, that can really help your designs digitally in a way that in a unique way that other people can't do.
Okay, so when you create websites, how important is coding to your websites? Do you do a lot of coding, or do you use like other programs that do that for you?
For websites, I use WordPress. And our goal when it comes to websites is basically the end product for the client. So I like to have it simple enough so the client can go in, and once it's done, they can edit it all themselves, they can update it themselves, because if they need to call us to update like a little word or a picture, that's not really helpful for them or necessarily helpful for us to like go in and make these little changes. So we like to use WordPress so it's not all hard-coded. We like to use things like clean plugins that can help them update things on their own, things like that. So as long as the code is clean, we try to keep it as simple as possible. And sort of, as long as, like, our main goal is the content, the message being done, designed, and flowed well throughout the website. And then from that, coding the coding obviously is important because it gets it all on there, but it sort of comes last on the back end as long as all those other things match up, if that makes sense. Like, it obviously has to work and not break and look weird on phones and things like that, but that's our goal, is the end product just being easy for them to update and getting the message across as best as it can.
I know you said like you don't want to like go huge in expansion, but just for like finding new clients and like growing your business, like expanding, how do you feel about like cons or expos to like not only promote your own business, but just to, like going to like specific cons or expos that like, oh, we're all about like food or shoes or what have you, and like figuring out what they need and have like how often do you think about that or do that?
So we haven't done anything specific. Like, we've gone to marketing conventions and things like that to kind of help us learn about our own industry, to kind of keep up to date with things like that. But we haven't gone to others just for the idea of selling to them. We just don't like to necessarily go out and say, hey, we think you need help. We want someone who knows they need help, or else they might kind of push us away. Is that what you mean? Like going to people who...
Yeah, that, and just also like going out and like almost just going to like a convention and just seeing large groups of like either different designers, or like if you lean towards designing towards like certain types of clients, let's monitor like these large groupings.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
So what we're kind of starting to do now is we like to get involved with networking groups and things like that, and mixers and stuff like that. And now we're sort of trying to have a little bit of a niche in the healthcare market, which that would be a good opportunity to go to maybe somewhere where like there is some sort of like healthcare event going on or something that we can even meet some people. So that would be a good strategy to go, just to introduce yourself and get into the market, or even if it's not a specific type of industry, but even a location. So it's like if we want to get involved in Cleveland or Pittsburgh, we want to make sure we go there and meet the people there. And because that's how we like to kind of make our sales, we want to go to meet people. We're not just going to like randomly cold call or send out mailers or things like that. If that's what you... I'm answering right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Broad.
Okay. You got a question?
Yeah. So before you hired the other two people to your team, how were you able to balance work and home life as a business owner?
Basically, you just have to put the line down. Because if you let yourself, you will work all day, every day. You just kind of have to mentally say, okay, it's after 5, I'm not going to work anymore. I had to turn off all my email notifications, because I would get an email at 6 o'clock, I would be thinking about it, and then I'd go do it. But just like shut down your email notifications, don't answer the phone calls, and just kind of set the standard. Because if you answer those emails on nights and weekends, then people are going to expect that from you. So if you just say like, this is when I'm going to be available, you only get to them during work hours or whatever hours you set for yourself, then it'll kind of start to have a pattern for you, and for them, they'll kind of learn to expect you to only be available during those times. And I do recommend it, because it can get overwhelming if you just answer everything every chance you get. Anything else?
Where'd the name Jet Creator come from? Is there any story behind that?
There's a weird story behind it.
Those are the best.
I know, it's people have these cool stories where it's like, oh, it's from this, it's this inspirational thing, but basically, a long story short, when I was about 6 years old and we were all making our AOL emails, my mom was like, what do you want yours to be? And I was like, I want it to be Jet. And then from then it's basically been like kind of a nickname of mine. And then when I was a senior, we had a project just to make a logo and to make like a design around it and things like that. And I was like, it's my senior year. I'm not gonna like go and think of something like absolutely out of the box. I'm just gonna make a logo with the word Jet, because it's kind of like been my nickname for the past however many years. And I made it and I showed it to my now husband, and he's like, this logo's really cool. Like this should be used somewhere. And basically that's kind of how it happened, and it went into place. And I think just even putting it down on paper made it kind of real. Like, okay, so we could use it for something. And so it just ended up being our logo, and it's like a simple, sort of straightforward.
You still use the same one too? Awesome.
And because I was a senior, I was sort of getting senioritis. So I was like, I'm not gonna like go in and like try super extra hard because I just want to graduate. But then like sometimes that makes the best stuff when you're not stressing about it and you just like put it down and it's like, hey, that actually looks kind of cool and I like it. And like sometimes the simple the better. So, and then it just kind of stuck, you know. It's the company name. And then creative. I just kind of made it obvious at the end. But there's a lot of tags you could have. But
That's interesting. I want to add to that. Next week we're going to have Justin Edwards. Do you know Justin Edwards?
Yeah.
He was in a college, I think in Bliss, probably when you were here. But
Yeah.
he moved now. He is a manager. He's director of the career services advice.
oh right. Yeah,
He's
he's
coming
coming
next Wednesday. If you all had a chance to look at the timeline, but he's coming next Wednesday to talk about resume. And I think he will probably say, 'cause he's been coming like for the last 2 or 3 semesters with the same, and he has funny little kind of, some anecdotes and tips on, and just not use, first big rule, do not use that first email that you made up for yourself, like as a professional.
Oh, really?
So like,
As a professional.
He has these words that we all start with, so it's kind of interesting to hear.
It's like a different, I kind of took it and ran with
For
it.
you, yeah, it worked out.
But there's some worse emails out there that are like a little like embarrassing. But
If you don't mind, I appreciate your time, but overall, for just the sake of maybe general tips, if you have in the importance of communication, I'm pretty sure presenting and communication with the client and talking not just about your portfolio and having this skill to convince, but responding to the clients. And are there anything general tips you would like to give? How important is strong communication skills?
right. So that's something that definitely gets better with practice. Like when I first started, the first marketing company I worked at, I was basically like in the back corner at a computer designing things. So when I started my own company, it's like I don't know how to talk to people. I don't remember how to communicate effectively. Luckily, my business partner, that's like her specialty, so I've been able to pick up some things from her. But I mean, a lot of it's just being personable, being friendly, and being yourself, and then kind of breaking the ice from the start. Like, okay, we're all people. We all have the same goal in mind of making your business better and getting you the product that you want. And then just kind of being open and honest. We don't like to kind of tiptoe around things, or we're not going to badmouth anyone if they have an idea that we don't agree with. We'll just tell them that might not necessarily work for these reasons. So we're not going to be yes men and give people everything they want if we think it's a bad idea. But I mean, we've just learned that being friendly, being yourself, if going out and getting a beer with them, so you don't necessarily have to put up a front, it makes things a lot easier.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody else? Go for it.
How do you go about finding networking groups? Is it just by word of mouth, or do you actually seek them out through the internet or through community groups or such?
Most of them I've learned about through other people. So like one person's a part of a group, and then they like it, so they tell me about it, which is kind of ideal because then you get involved with a group that you know is already good instead of one that you're just like picking up online. So there's like the ones around here that are kind of bigger, like the Mahoning Valley Young Professionals group. They have mixers every month and they do a lot of stuff. So, excuse me, that's one to really kind of you can get involved with easily. There's a lot of people there, and they're all good people with all the same passions. And then there's kind of those more like centered groups. So I'm part of a group called Tuesdays Together, which is where local creative entrepreneurs get together. And it's a lot of like wedding photographers, and there's like calligraphers and florists, and we all get together once a month. It's a Facebook group, and it's kind of the same thing. Everyone's trying to help, and the slogan is community over competition. And someone just told me about it, and then I joined it, and it's like, this is a cool group. And now from it, we've made a lot more friends and just more connections and things like that. And there's just like these little groups out there that you don't know about that are out there. And even there's a lot at YSU too. There's clubs you can get involved in and things like that can still help you, get to know people and move forward. All right, anything else?
In the first out of school, like that transition, like that's probably my last just transition from, again, Justin Anderson's coming, and he's really big advocate. Of course, he runs the job fair.
Oh yeah.
It happens every once a year, maybe twice, I'm not sure. But so that period of being done, having degree, and going, some might have like specific plans, but most I assume don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like any tips maybe in looking online for those first jobs, attending job fairs, like importance of that, or any specific suggestions if you have?
I really appreciate just relationships, which is kind of why I said before, getting to know as many people as you could. So, if you have any professors that give you referrals, like those are the ones you really want to jump on. And the job fairs are good because then you can see someone kind of face to face and talk to them like that. It's probably a little harder if you just fill out some sort of resume or application online, because then you're kind of in a sea of other people that, obviously do those because that's not going to hurt. But the more people you know, the more likely you'll already have your foot in the door before you're even looking. Which I know can be hard if you don't know anyone right off the bat. But just that first job you get when you graduate, it's probably not going to be your dream job. So if you could find something that is something that kind of works with what you want, it still will get you in the door a little bit and get you some experience. And then just to not get discouraged if it's not your favorite thing that you want to be doing. Because that's a lot of times I've seen happen with a lot of my friends. They couldn't find a job, or the job they did find they didn't like. But then once you kind of hold in there and you gather that experience, it gets easier from there. So basically, don't get discouraged if you don't find something as soon as you graduate, but as long as you keep your confidence up and your just self-esteem up, and you start learning and meeting new people even throughout your first job, then you should be able to find something as long as you don't stop trying.
Thank you so much. That was really, I think, helpful.
So,
anyone else has comments, responses, questions? Well, thank you, Emily. We'll keep you in mind for future, if you don't mind.
oh yeah, for sure.